back with another banger and all that is yours true, your Rid on swag. Hashtag back to Kemet. Now I want to welcome y'all back to Kemet, man. Welcome, all my kings and queens, god and goddesses. You know what I mean? Even for my fools and my children. Welcome back, man. This is the path. This is the path. You know what I mean? This is a walkway. This is an avenue. You know what I mean? This is an information highway. You feel me? So make sure y'all buckle up and enjoy the ride. Feel me? And enjoy the ride and all. I ran across some amazing information, and I felt like it was imperative. You know what I mean? It was imperative for me to share some of this much needed information, much needed knowledge, much needed science with a lot of the people, that's been rocking with me for a long time and all that. I feel like this is one of the only ways we could really, converse. One of the only ways I could really make sure that we on the same page. Me being on my own little journey, and I found out, like, listen, man, a lot of this stuff was hidden because they didn't want it to be monetized. You know what I'm saying? And a superficial type of monopoly. You know what I'm saying? It was never meant for that. It was meant for empowerment. It was meant for self-development. You know what I mean? To where we can all reach our higher selves. So without further ado, I'm not gonna hold y'all too long and all that. I just want y'all to ride with me, buckle up. You know what I'm saying? You in the whip and all that. Got your seatbelt on. All right, bet we about to blast off. You feel me? So without further ado, this one is called The Great Work. For too long has mankind been oppressed by those who have robbed you of your spiritual power, heritage, and sovereignty. It is time that the average man and woman be strong and wise enough to rule themselves. As humanity's mind increase in capacity and establish newer, nobler codes of ethics and morals, there shall be those intellects which divine providence ordains and excels, and by the virtue of such excellence demonstrate their fitness for honor and responsibility. These chosen ones, the elect, are those illumined philosophers and initiates who are the only ones truly fitted to direct mankind's activities. Never will peace reign upon our beautiful fallen planet until we are ruled by the fit, until those who possess vision are permitted to see for the blind and the ignorant. Mankind will only ever be truly free when governed by the wise. They are all inclined towards the perfection of their own natures. This is the highest duty for which all are called out of the world. It is the noblest enterprise for which you shall be transmute and raised and given the tools for the great work. How small a germ mankind springs from, yet how much that germ contains, for each spermosome is in the man and the woman with character, personality, and individuality. From so slight a beginning, what greatness issues forth, for within that single tiny germ are contained not only the epitome of all of the past, but also the potential of all the greatness that is to follow. A new day is dawning for all humanity from the insufficiency of theology and hopelessness of materialism. Men and women are turning to seek the knowledge and the divinity of the initiates and illuminated philosophers. In this new era wherein the old order of civilization is breaking down and individuals are rising triumphant above the monotony of the masses, there is still immense work to be done. The original magi are needed more than ever before. A great reconstruction is at hand. The debris of this fallen world must be swept away. The cornerstone must be found again, that a new temple significant of a new revelation in law may be raised thereon. The time is beginning to commence where the body of society is beginning to be sickened of the vanities and treacheries it supports, and are now finally inclining towards integrity. The day of awakening is beginning to bud, for man and woman cannot suffer indefinitely. The saturation point of human endurance is beginning to reach its limit. The immensity of the unnecessary burden we have carried and the born through countless ages must be cast aside. And in turning the truth shall we find our own liberation. Oh, slumbering humanity, wake up. Wake up from your hellish slumber. Break free from the demiurgic bondage of a materiality and ignorance. Purify your hearts and minds. Alchemize and unfur your spirit and embrace the azure of amity. Transmute your souls and ascend back into the divine realms of the celestial Aprian. Hence, though came, remember divinity of which you are, the glorious and magnificent divine spark, the fallen angel who has forgotten heaven. We, initiates of the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light and the Rosicrucian guardians of the sacred eternal flame, honor and welcome you in this immense labor of the great work. Welcome back to Kemet. Message to the Hermetic occult students. Esteemed brothers and sisters, in attempting to explain the esoteric philosophies and occult mysteries of the universe, there is formidable difficulty to be encountered, that of being exoterically understood. Those students and individuals who are as yet unable to comprehend the sublime import of holy sciences would be advised in abstaining from occult studies altogether, preferably for the adoption of other forms of teaching adopted to their sphere of thought, for their souls are insufficiently etherized for those humanly divine attributes to awake into activity. Notwithstanding all the merely ephemeral curiosity towards mystical researches, yet their advancement will only ever reach the portals of the outer temple. Notwithstanding all the merely ephemeral curiosity towards mystical researches, yet their advancement will only ever reach the portals of the outer temple. The fearful dweller on the threshold will debar their feeble footsteps and will be unable to enter the inner holy of holies, and they must remain contented until the time arrives when conditions are evolved enough in the scale of succeeding human races, conditions which will then permit of the expansive budding and blossoming of their souls currently latent attributes. That was deep. Their fearful dweller on the threshold will debar their feeble footsteps and will be unable to enter the inner holy of holies, and they must remain contented until the time arrives when conditions are evolved in the scale of succeeding human races, conditions which will then permit of the expansive budding and blossoming of their souls currently latent attributes. There are also numerous individuals who, although being in conditions suitable for the perception of the truth and for the true significance of the grand mysteries, are yet totally unqualified for the perception of the knowledge, owing to their natural but terrible elemental affinity. The product of this fearful psychic condition is that occult powers which they might develop would be used for purposes of purely selfish and worldly nature. Such individuals would become a Priscillian Scrooge to humanity. Even in the case, however, it is quite a minority of this class who can grasp any actual power, for upon the contrary, they frequently become the very dupes and slaves of the powers they so adherently seek to control. To all such, we fervently and solemnly say, abandon all thoughts of spirit intercourse. Flee from occultism and spiritualism as you would from pestilence. And may divine guardians of the human race preserve your soul from the bottomless abyss. To you individuals who simply pry into the occult for merely curiosity, have nothing to say. You will abstain just as much as you deserve, and nothing more. Ask, ye shall receive. Seek, and shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened upon you. Is equally true in relation to the esoteric knowledge. However, this invariably presupposes that the beggar and the knocker are in the earnest, that they seek only to satisfy the deep yearnings of the immortal soul. The doorkeeper, guardian of the temple of truth, is a mute as a granite rock to all others. They may beg, they may shout, and bawl until their voice are hoarse, but if they approach the sanctuary in any other spirit, it is all to no purpose. We can never take the kingdom of heaven by storm. But to the student of nature's inner law, I say to you, rest assured that you will receive in full measure of reward for each and every earnest endeavor, for Urania's dazzling lamp will ultimately illuminate your dark and difficult path, and you shall indeed perceive the living light of the world, which will thereby enable you to cast aside the veil of the holy mystical Isis, and behind her magic curtain read the ever-burning truths of nature inscribed upon the unfolding scrolls of time. The most ancient sciences, this one's called alchemy, the royal art. The most ancient sciences in the world are alchemy and the Kabbalah, knowledge hidden in the depths of every great religion and mystical tradition. Modern scientists are only recently discovering what these ancient teachings have always known, that we are part of the multi-dimensional universe, and that our consciousness and our awareness can expand to perceive matter and energy that are invisible to the flesh. Just as physics and chemistry illuminate our understanding of the physical world, their higher counterparts, alchemy and Kabbalah, offer practical methods to awaken the consciousness and fully develop the human being, opening the doors to vast worlds that are hidden from the physical senses. The awakening of alchemical birth requires a precise method, for everything depends upon causes and conditions. Hidden in the centuries of mystical texts and obscure drawings are the specific instructions that lead towards the opening of the inner senses and the entrance to the higher life. The law of silence has always been maintained by the initiates and adepts. In the writings of the ancient Egyptian adepts, we find descriptions and expositions of the teachings, but its practice was always silent. They have written only for those who had been initiated into their mysteries, and because of that, they have intentionally filled their books with enigmas and contradictions. The term alchemy derives from al meaning the, and kamina or kamia from Kemet. So al means the and kamia means Kemet, the ancient name of Egypt meaning the black land. It is for this reason that alchemy has sometimes been referred to as the black art or the Egyptian art. It was born from the land of the dark, nutrient-rich soil of the fertile Nile River Valley that sustained ancient Kemetic civilizations for thousands of years. However, alchemy was not, and it is not, a single specialized subject solely concerning itself exclusively with metals and their correspondence in man, but rather a comprehensive physical and metaphysical system embracing cosmology as much as anthropology, in the sense of a complete knowledge of mankind in body, soul, and spirit. Everything, nature and supranature, may be found in it. The foolish errors of those historians of science who want to reduce our royal art to mere chemistry, being in an infantile and mythological stage, must be concerned within one's miscued view of the holy science. It is a real science in which reintegration with the primordial state does not have an intended moral, but is concrete and ontological, even to the point of conferring supernormal powers. The characteristics of the hermetic process constitutes the first reason for its concealment. The characteristics of the hermetic process constitutes the first reason for its concealment, not for superficial mon- monopolistic monopolistic purposes, not for superficial monopolistic purposes, but for inner technical reasons. Any science of this type has always protects itself by initiatory secrets and expressions through symbols. In order to understand the second reason for this, that was deep. Hermetic alchemy knowledge has usually been regarded as a sacred science. But prevailing designations that better characterizes it, that of the ars regia, or royal art. In its pure form, the royal initiatory tradition is the most direct and legitimate link to ancient primordial traditions, both alchemy and hermeticism. The body of the theological and philosophical writings and teachings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus are one and the same. The goal of the system is understanding and experiencing of an ensouled holy organism replete with living powers, in whom everything is marvelously interwoven, connected to, and equalized with everything else. Man and woman stand in the middle with the microcosm in analogy to the entire macrocosm, on the words of the emerald tablet, as above so below. The alchemical symbolic language, being the expression of this universal system, must therefore also have correspondence in all the other mystery spheres. And you can consequently serve as a universal key in these spheres. Just as any other mystery teaching has the power to fill in the gaps of exotericism, in alchemy, only the transmission is given directly. The key is not transmitted by writing, but is infused in spirit by means of the spirit who receives it. Swear never to reveal it to anyone who is not one of them. You must realize that our royal art being secret has nothing to do with any exclusivity of sect or unwillingness to speak, but rather is a matter of not being able to say, in addition to preventing the inevitable incomprehension of those who would profane and distort our royal art. Let's say that again. You must realize that our royal art being secret has nothing to do with any exclusivity of sect or unwillingness to speak, but rather is a matter of not being able to say, in addition to preventing the inevitable incomprehension of those who would profane and distort our royal art, because alchemical teachings consist of an art made possible by higher powers, set in motion by superior and non-human states of consciousness. It is only natural to declare that the secret of the great work may not be transmitted, but is the privilege of only of initiates. The great work can only take place when an active soul is capable of functioning in a well-constructed spiritual body. Few individuals have as yet such active souls or such fully formed spiritual bodies, for many think that the possession of the fruit of the great work comes by chance and without much effort, or that is given by nature to the unworthy. We, the alchemists, being convinced that it comes only as a result of special effort, have thereby designated it the great work and not a recreation. This is the royal principle. Around 3000 BC, the pyramid text spoke of constitution of man, his survival of death, and his relation to the life of the cosmos. Later on in time, Moses, who was learned in all of the wisdom of the Egyptian, included as much of it suitable for his people. During the dynasties of the pharaohs, they had developed symbolic terms to evolution of the royal principle, the superhumanity within the individual. The pharaohs were themselves the prototype of this principle, first in the Osirian development, then into the further evolution as Horus. Until the coming of the Christos, the Kemetic Egyptian sages brought the perfection of their teachings in writing, in written text, and on their monuments. They summarize in the Ptolemaic temple of Philae the entire symbolism of Isis, while that of Heru have been reserved for the initiates of the temple, which then became the very foundation upon which the mission of the Christos emerged. The initiation of the Essenes were the link between the wisdom of the pharaohs, the metaphysics of St. John's, and the pure mysticism of the first 3 centuries of the Christian church in Asia Major, Africa, Europe, and finally in the philosophical symbolism of the Byzantines. All the great traditions have spoken of a man on earth as being in a transitory condition between his original state of non-separation of his final conscious return to union with the divine. The trouble came from mankind's desire to possess wills and know by means of his brain and senses all the powers that he knew in himself before being separated from it. Thus declares the Gospels that in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, one must become as a little child, to allow the mind to obey the impulses which come from the heart and the spirit. All the great messengers of the spirit and the master of mysticism have all declared with a single voice that the supreme aim of humanity is the reunion with the divine principle. They all maintain simplicity of the heart and mind and the abolition of hatred, violence, and vengeance. Every sincere seeker has within their own heart the will towards the light. You truly If you truly and sincerely listen to it, you will not seek in vain. You will then realize that behind all religions, there's only one truth, and that revelation of this truth through their many different myths, symbols, brings harmony instead of discord. The difficulty of the present age is caused by the confused variety of beliefs and opinions, the restlessness of modern daily life, and the falsity of conventional artificial standards in morality and aesthetics have corrupted our vision until it seems that nothing short of catastrophe can arouse us to a truer awareness. We confuse the discernment of reality with our personal opinions. We confuse the discernment of reality with our personal opinions and intellectual judgment with recognition of truth. The recognition of truth lies in discerning true from false, pure from impure, and must always be related to our aim in making such distinctions. The lead that is being used for purifying gold is carried off with the impurities while the gold remains. This imperfect thing is human nature, and the physical body is the vehicle of consciousness built up by experiences of life. But if this consciousness is to meditate and discern effectively, it must be free to undergo its experiences uncorrupted by artificial notions and conventional rules. Otherwise, the imperfect thing will reject the pure instead of being transmuted by it. The pure is the immortal element in man, his divine soul in Egypt. It is his higher Ka. It is the Christos of Horus, or the Horus element, which by its union with the corporeal man makes him complete consciousness and teaches him to distinguish real values from relative ones. The mysteries, the faith are not to be divulged to all. It is requisite to hide in a mystery the wisdom spoken, which the Son of God taught. The aim of the Hermetic opus is the possession of a particular substance. The substance is the vital fire, the universal life force, the Luciferian fire of the Freemasons, capable of being transmitted to a specific being in order to lead that being to its own perfection. Let's read that again one time. The aim of the Hermetic opus is the possession of a particular substance. This substance is that of vital fire, the universal life force, the Luciferian fire of the Freemasons, capable of being transmitted to a specific being in order to lead that being to its own perfection in regards to man, because this force deals with the ultimate becoming of the human. This life essence is called the king, cosmic man. However, attaining the aim of the Hermetic opus is not an end, but the beginning of the light that illuminates. It is he, the human being, as bodily creature, animated by the divine breath, the vital fire, who endures the entire passion of the Hermetic opus in order to attain the royal perfection. The renowned philosopher's stone, the king, the true king, is the living being who has reached the stage of a mortal and conscious return to the source of the soul that animates him. The spiritual ascent of man is the path to be realized. The royal principle within humanity and nature was central to the pharaoh's mentality. It is this very principle which is capable of transmuting all kingdoms. Thus, the mineral becomes gold and man becomes pharaoh. The image of man's cosmic accomplishment in the exaltation of the species, the sacred science of alchemical transformation, the science of thoughts. It is the science of all times and was held in high esteem by the sages of ancient Egypt. Its foundations are identical to those of every philosophy concerned with the beginning of things. Are they who few are they who have been able to penetrate this secret beginning. Those who have succeeded have left a token of existence of this science by means of riddles or allegories. They have described the process of work. And the phases of becoming, yet without revealing the essential secret. This royal art has been presented under the symbolical veil alchemical arts of transmuting base metals into gold, that the human being may aspire a higher state, shows to him or her that they are dissatisfied with their present state. Such dissatisfaction reveals that latent within themselves resides a form of consciousness other than mere animal consciousness. To generate the magnum opus is to generate within us the liberation from our suffering and mortal condition, and to search for the liberation is also to realize the magnum opus. The mutation of one's deeper structure is the only thing that matters for the purposes of this higher knowledge. This knowledge, which is born wisdom and power at the same time, is essentially non-human. It is achieved by following a way that presupposes the active and effective overcoming of human condition. Let's read that one more time. To generate the magnum opus is to generate within us the liberation from our suffering and mortal condition. And to search for this liberation is to also realize the magnum opus. The mutation of one's deeper structure is the only thing that matters for the purposes of this higher knowledge. This knowledge, which is both wisdom and power at the same time, is essentially non-human. It is achieved by following a way that presupposes the active, effective overcoming of human condition. The teaching corresponds to a unitary tradition that can be found variously expressed in the traditions of every people, sometimes expressed as the wisdom of an ancient royal priestly elite, sometimes as knowledge concealed in sacred symbols, myth, and rituals, or as allegorical writings, mystery traditions, initiations, theology, yoga, and high magic. In more recent times, it has manifested as the knowledge of the underground current that surfaces here and there in the course of Western history up to Hermeticism and Rosicrucians. The record of immense suffering and horror throughout history has emerged into actuality over many centuries due to the unbelievable mutilation of the first true conception of the character and office of the Messiah is overwhelmingly justification of a sincere effort to dismantle and remove this mistaken view and resurrect it to its original truth and beauty. The time has come to end the sway of an entirely false idea of nature in the Christos and inaugurate the dominance of the only conception that truly honors it. It must finally be realized that the Christos was and is a grade of distinctively divine consciousness that is emerging gradually into the rulership within humanity, it being nothing more than this, never a man. The conception of the Christos as mankind embodying their divine genius, or the God self within, open at once the whole of scripture to lucid and consistent intelligibility. This is indeed the key to any true grasp of the whole sense of that revered body of literature. The very instant the concept is shifted from mankind as divine to a divine man in historical personage, dire confusion, entanglement and contradiction, ridiculous inconsistency, and the uncanny historical nonsense are thrust into structure of scripture. The concept of Christos as a godly higher self within man meets the tangled riddle of the Bible with complete satisfaction of every intellectual demand, and no other concept does so. The orthodox opinion is wholly aligned to the idea that the historical Jesus is the most positive assurance of the individual Christian salvation and the active agent of its realization. However, it is this very idea of the Christ as a historical person that has stood as the most concrete obstacle in the way of salvation. The thesis of the historical Jesus has taken the mind and the aspiration of all devotees outside themselves to allege a man of Galilee, when the whole effort at spiritual growth and the cultivation of our own divinity must be focused within the depths of our own consciousness. There's no denying the fact that the cult of the historical Jesus has stood squarely between men and women and their eminent God, keeping them far apart from one another. Medieval and modern blindness has reversed the direction of aspiration, resulting in calamitous consequences. Centuries of the spiritual benignness have produced for historical record the pitiful and demoralizing spectacle of billions of misguided adherents turning outside themselves for salvation and pleading with an alleged personal figure on the stage of remote history to enter their lives and transform them into loveliness, all the while neglecting the voice of the only real Christos that has ever existed, their own instinct of goodness, truth, and love. Wow, I might have to run that back one time. Hold on. Centuries of spiritual benignness have produced for historical record the pitiful and demoralizing spectacle of billions of misguided adherents turning outside themselves for salvation and pleading with an alleged personal figure on the stage of remote history to enter their lives and transform them into loveliness, all the while neglecting the voice of the only real Christos that has ever existed, their own instinct for goodness, truth, and love. He is not a man outside yourself. He is the divinity whom you keep buried so deeply in your own hearts and minds that you do not know has always been here. The very trend and sway of the idea has been made possible only through the almost total abandonment of the rational faculty and its displacement by the sheer zealotry of faith. It is the most notable example of instance of the power of the psychological elements in mystical pietism to override and paralyze the rational elements in religion. If any actual vicarious atonement for salvation were possible, the whole purpose for which souls from the celestial apprehend migrate to earth to further their evolution would be thwarted. Each soul must become the dynamo and the citadel of its own strength, cultivating their own inner power and resilience, or there would be inequity and chaos in the councils of evolution. Life grants nothing to any unit of being that is has not earned. Life grants nothing to any unit of being that it has not earned. To do so would be to introduce favoritism and particularities into a universal economy, that the whole evolutionary advance of mankind across the gulf of undeveloped capacities from animals through humans to divine nature was alleged to be effectuated and instrumentalized by the forces embodied in a single man at a given date in history, is to see the notion in all the glaring nakedness of its inherent absurdity. It has maintained its grip upon billions of minds, not through intellectual merit or honest examination, but a complete lack of intellectual honesty and sitting of critical thought induced by extreme elements of emotional religiously. Vicariously, salvation was one of the central themes of theology that led Friedrich Nietzsche to cry out his bitter enunciation of Christianity as slave morality, the purchase of man's redemption by the shed of Christ in the literal sense in which it stands as a doctrine of Christianity is indeed one of the heaviest marks of Christianity's doctrinal degradation. The sheer spectacle of a omnipotent creator of all the worlds and universes setting a trap to catch his own creatures by tempting them to sin, then condemning them to eternal misery in consequence of their inevitable fall, and afterwards negotiating with them to appease with his wrath on a condition that his own son, only begotten son, consent to die in their stead, has stood for 17 centuries as the foundation of that religion which storms out all others with vehement claims to being the all highest excellence among the faiths on earth. Might have to read that again. The sheer spectacle of an omnipotent creator of all the worlds and universes setting a trap to catch his own creatures by tempting them to sin, then condemning them to eternal misery and consequences of their inevitable fall, and afterward negotiating with them to appease his wrath on the condition that his own son, his only begotten son, consent to die in their stead, has stood for 17 centuries as a foundation of that religion which stomps out all others with its vehement claims to being the all highest excellence amongst the faiths on earth. The Tarot is a textbook of occult teachings intended for the use of serious spiritual students who are in search of enlightenment and who are willing to devote a reasonable amount of time and thought to the discovery of the deeper meaning of life. Those who seek to find the Tarot an easy method of spiritual development will be disappointed. There is no easy method. The Tarot is not a plaything, nor is it only a pack of cards designed for purposes of fortune telling. For thousands of years, the symbols of the Tarot have been silently preserved in a variety of ways, always hidden, rarely understood. Ancient times, Tarot was amongst the highest secrets of the mystical traditions and was completely unknown to the public. Unfortunately, some cunning people stole and modified a portion of the protected teachings over centuries that stole knowledge passed from Egypt through Arabia and finally into Europe, eventually becoming what we popularly refer to as playing cards. The word tarot itself believed to originate from two Egyptian words, tar meaning road and ro meaning royal. Thus the tarot really is saying royal road to wisdom. The reality is that the tarot deck of recent centuries are at best merely decayed remnants of what was stolen long ago, or worse, outright inventions of ignorant people which are truly useless. Just as humanity has done in so many cases, all that is sacred about the tarot has been forgotten and has been reduced to a mere distraction, a way to cheat the foolish out of their money, or a way to entertain oneself. The modern use of the tarot is as very far from its true purpose as are the great temples of Egypt as tourist attractions. The tarot is a vital element in the Rosicrucian symbolism, the very book of the universal wisdom which members of the order claim to possess. The rota is a term frequently occurring in early manifestos of the Fraternity of the Rose Cross. By rearranging the letters, rota becomes Toro, the meaning name of these cards. The tarot cards must be considered as one, separate and complete hieroglyphs, each representing distinct principle, law, power, and element in nature. Two, in relation to each other as the effect of one agent operating another. And three, the vowels and consonants of the philosophical alphabet. The laws governing all phenomena are represented by symbols upon the cards whose numerical values are equal to numerical equivalent of the phenomena. Each arcanum has levels and levels of meaning. Knowing the tarot is mathematic, one knows that the factor cannot be understood in isolation, but only by its relation with other factors. So every arcanum has to be seen in relation with other factors because everything is interdependent in life. The tarot reflects and reveals the independence of all things. The art and religion of the tarot. Art is communication. The highest art is the communication between the soul and the spirit. The tarot facilitates this art by showing the soul how to hear what the spirit communicates. The soul that learns no longer requires a tarot deck. Religion is not belief, dogma, no ritual, but how the spirit and the soul are united. Religion coming from Latin means reunite. The ultimate purpose of the tarot is to help us cast off the causes of suffering and reunite with the root of genuine happiness, our true nature. Real religion is not a belief, it is an experience of unity and divine. Two main purposes are served by the tarot. First, it preserves and transmit of an esoteric teaching. Secondly, it evokes specific mystical, intellectual, and emotional responses from the inner consciousness who has been taught how to look. It is no longer a secret that there exists it is no longer a secret that there exists occult teachings that reveal the true nature of man, of the universe, and their mutual relationship. Every aspirant who has delved far enough into philosophy, psychology, or religion has come upon evidence of such teachings. If one has the courage to take these clues seriously and perseverance to investigate them, they are inevitably richly rewarded. There are those who approach these teachings by way of intellect. Others follow by the way of emotion and intuition. The latter take the occult doctrines more upon faith than by use of reason, and they are no less correct than their more intellectual fellows because they can rely upon this phase of their nature to guide them aright. The tarot serves as both classes by strengthening the emotional, intuitional nature of one and developing balanced intellectual qualities in the other. In this way, the second function of the tarot, the evocation of creative states and consciousness, is a great importance. The divinity within us can use the tarot to educate us in the language of the internal words and guide us to our awakening. The archetypes are within us. Tarot is intensely practical. It is principles are applicable to the problems which confront everyone in the course of everyday existence. Its function is to induce the powerful, expanded states of consciousness in the individual that will enable them to cope with the life efficiently, to understand the spiritual meaning and significance of one's experience and in its environment in relation to oneself as an internal being. Such understanding and the activities consequent upon it constitutes the purpose of mankind's existence in this realm. The tarot is a sacred tool, and the answers you receive will be sacred. Treat it disrespectfully or casually, and you will get nothing from it. Nothing in life comes free, especially in the spiritual life. This is particularly true of answers from the divine. When you really need an answer to a question, find a way to earn it. Learn how to work with the powers of the scale, cause and effect, the law of karma. Do good deeds, pay your karmic debt, sacrifice your desires and your defects. Choose the virtuous action over the selfish one. In this way, one gains the right to ask and to be answered. To whom nothing is owed, nothing is paid. Let's read that one more time. That was profound. This might be the last one. The tarot is a sacred tool, and the answers you receive will be sacred. Treat it disrespectfully or casually, and you will get nothing from it. Nothing in life comes free, especially in spiritual life. This is particularly true of answers from divine. When you really need an answer to a question, find a way to earn it. Learn how to work with the powers of the scale, cause and effect, the law of karma. Do good deeds. Pay your karmic debts. Sacrifice your desires and your defects. Choose the virtuous action over the selfish one. In this way, one gains the right to ask and to be answered. To one whom nothing is owed, nothing is paid. To one whom nothing is owed, nothing is paid. And I think that's about it, man. I appreciate y'all rocking with me, man. I gotta go back in and probably edit this, see if I could do it a little better. But it was definitely profound. You know what I'm saying? Food for thought. We didn't had you know what I'm saying? We didn't had a buffet here. You know, it's all you can eat. All you can eat. When we talking about food for thought, this has been an all you can eat buffet. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, you know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, this is, you know, our destination for today. But remember, tomorrow, I need y'all to, you know what I mean, come along for the ride on this information highway and let's get locked in. You feel me? I definitely appreciate all the love and all that. Remember, go follow that hashtag back to Kemet. You know what I mean? Take what you need, leave what you don't. I appreciate all the support and all that. You know what the Cash App is, man. And yeah, man, I definitely appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Facebook. I'm on Twitch. I'm on Kick. I got a lot of new music that's coming out. So make sure y'all, you know, check out the Rid on Swag on all your streaming platforms. Check out some of the music and all that. And I definitely appreciate the love, man. I'm just sharing my journey. You know, there's a lot of other people out there, you know what I mean? You got to be your own testament and all that. You know, this is how we going to document our journey, document our evolution, document the contrast from, you know what I mean, my lower self to higher self, from the old me to the new me, you know, and hopefully you know, somebody else is being inspired by this. You know what I'm saying? I hope you can be inspired to be your higher self. You know what I'm saying? To be better than the old you. You know what I mean? I said that in one of my songs I'm about to drop soon is I know that I owe me to be better than the old me. And that's something you should live by. You know what I mean? And this is what we talking about when we talking about tapping in. If you want to talk about religion was to unite. But if you really want to unite, you're uniting with yourself. I want you to unite with your spirit. I want you to unite with your higher self. I want you to unite with your higher soul. I want you to unite with the higher realms. I want you to unite with the peace and the love and the abundance. And if, you know, I could do my part, I'm just, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing my part, you know? So I definitely appreciate your time, you know, peace, love, and light and all that, man. Hawa, Shalawam, you know, peace, calm, peace, king, peace, Islam, you know what I mean? So all of those school of thoughts and all the paths that, you know, want to unite us. I want us to be united, but I want you to also be united with your spirit and soul. So with that being said, hashtag back to Kemet. It's been a pleasure, and there'll be a lot more where that came from on this information highway. Thank y'all for locking in with me and riding with me, you know, on this beautiful journey. You know, I hope y'all have a good night and all that. We out.